Okay. It is Wednesday night, and I am recording this uh, open house, which counts as a lecture for you guys in this course. Um, Welcome to J280, Contemporary Issues in Criminal Justice, and I'm going to share with you for the next hour or so the information that's necessary to help you to do well. Though at this point, I don't have to do a lot of details with you guys because you are actually at the point where you're about to graduate and to go into your fields. So I'm going to get right into sharing my screen. Okay, again, this is my name. That is me over there in the corner as well as at the top there. My phone number is 630-660-8480. And then I want you to pay attention to this note under here. Students can feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. I mean what I say. And when you do text me, make sure that you identify which course that you're in. And the section, even though more importantly is the course you're in and, of course, your name, so that I will know. I will respond back to you. There are times when people text me real late, and I will text them back, or even sometimes I will call you depending on the situation and circumstances. But the statement means what it says, and I hope that you will take me up on that as you finish up your year here at this school and you're on your way. So I want to make sure that you understand that I'm here to serve you. I want to give you certain rules at the home course page. I have a lot of information. One of the things I want to remind you is that you're required to conduct research for all papers. That means the sole source cannot be the textbook. Well, in this class, it really doesn't really matter because you really don't have a textbook per se because this is more of a field course. This is more of a hands-on course. But I do want to say that all written assignments should be in APA format. That means citations in the body of the paper and references in the end and a cover sheet. And then when we start talking about tutoring and things like that, if you need tutoring, you should do it. But you don't have to have a problem to need tutoring. There's also sources in here like our writing guide, and these are quick links to them, as well as the Library and Learning Center resource, which was put together so much by our Learning Center coordinator, Bethany Marston, and our librarian, Suzanne Schreifer. And then there is, so take advantage of those. There's tutoring assistance given to you and explained to you the importance of it. And then there's some great articles that I recommend going beyond the textbook, which you don't really have a big deal with. Analytical tips. You should know about, at this juncture, um, the difference between taking information and writing it, and I want to know about your critical analysis. I want to know about your ability to be able to take materials and apply it to your written assignments. So I'm going to be looking for that in your written assignments as well. Information literacy, very important, so that you'll be able to find information that you need, research, utilizing the email, the websites and other places, and then referencing for criminal justice students. The annotated bibliography you should be familiar with, but there is an article here as well as a resource in the course that helps you as well, or in our library Learning Center or in the Criminal Justice School of Justice Studies page. Rubrics for your written assignments. You'll see your scoring rubrics that you'll notice that you have assignments that have to satisfy these sections of the requirements. Notice APA. You can lose 5 points right off the bat if you don't have the proper citation, organizations, your grammar, and the required page count. So if it's a 2-page or 3-page assignment, as the first one is, then you're going to need to have that with the citations and references. And so each week, these are the high grade. You'll notice all the way through. Then there's field work that fits within there in week 5. Week 6, you're back to your written assignments. 7, written assignments. 8, field work. 9, employment plan. 10, your written assignment and your ACAT assessment. And then week 11, you then have your final report, and then you'll have your final exam, which you'll see, we'll talk about in a minute. Included also is another rubric, a rubric for your discussion posts, as you will learn that and already know the discussion posts are due usually on Tuesdays, but this week Wednesday will be the rule because we started on Tuesday, and your reply posts are due on Saturday. And the details of discussion posts are listed in the rubric, but basically I want to see details. I don't want to just see yes or no short answers. And you want to get your discussion posts completed on time so that your classmates can have time to respond, but also so that you can maximize the point that you get, because every day that you're late with a discussion post, you lose 1 point. As with written assignments themselves, you can lose 10% of your grade. So if your grade is 100, on Monday, if it's due on Sunday, you're going to have a 90. If it's Tuesday, you get it in, you're going to have an 80, and all throughout the week. So that by Wednesday, you'll be down to a 70, even with a good paper. However, based upon extenuating circumstances, which you'll see in a little bit, I will work with you on that. And extenuating circumstances have to be legitimate, and I'm the one who decides what is and what is not that fits in that category, not your dean or anybody else. I'm the one who makes that decision, and so you need to reach out to me. If you're in the military and you have to have go out in the National Guard, or if you're deployed, let me know, because I will not deduct points in those scenarios, because of the fact that I want to make sure that serving your country does not penalize you as far as your work is concerned. But you need to let me know and then work things through. The only extension that I cannot give is for discussion posts, because I always encourage students to do them. You should know also that with the way things are set up now, you can do things earlier than the module week that it actually is. I don't encourage that, but if you know you have a situation like that, do your discussion posts. At least do at least your initial post, and then try to do your discussion reply post at least one at some point within the time period, because once that week ends, that Monday comes the following week, discussion posts can't be accepted for grade. Then you have another requirement in this course. Live lectures will take place 6:30 to 7:30, beginning January 3rd, which is today, for an open house. So that counts as week 1. Then the next lecture will be week 3, then 6, then 8, and then 10. you must attend the live lecture or listen to the archive. Each week, there will be a keyword given at the end. You will be required to provide me with that keyword. If you don't attend the live lecture, I will be able. You will lose points, or provide me with that keyword, knowing that you listened to it. Okay. These are your course announcements. Again, APA assistance, and then you saw this one already. Your um, your welcome announcement, and when you open that up, it tells you things that you need to do. You should be familiar with this because you've been here for a while. But all of these things, you make sure that you pay attention to the syllabus, um, the student lounge, the course mail. I recommend looking at your course mail frequently. Your calendar has dates along with your announcements. If you have a question related to the course, post it in the general course questions forum. Anyone can answer these questions, including myself. The resources tab, where you can find valuable things like Grammarly. You should be familiar with Grammarly now, where you check to make sure that the grammar is correct and that you have enough information that I'm more interested in your critical skills than I am of you copying and pasting and taking material there. So I want to see that type of thing. So you can learn that from your resource tab, which is right up here. Here it is, right there. Okay. All right, let's make that. All right. So then, going right down, your report tab is where you find your grade book. And then here's some additional information about APA and study guides. And then reminds us about the lecture schedule that we have. And then checking your lessons tab, as well as your getting started folder, so that you can start off on the right foot. Then, once a week, you'll see an announcement for the first week, an overview of Capstone, which is what I'm doing now, to prepare you for assignments. It tells you, make sure you check the module and the grading rubric, which I went over that just a few minutes ago. And then your relationship between the three components, that's your first written assignment. There it is over on the other side of your discussion post. It's not that. That then versus now is your written assignment over here. But your discussion assignment, relationship between the three components, and your initial post is due tonight, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and your reply post is due on Saturday. Now, starting next week, this bold print, all initial posts are due on Tuesdays. And then, as I said, then versus now, your written assignment, we've already gone over that rubric here. And then I'm going to discuss the fieldwork component. And then I'm going to close with letting you know what I mean by adversity is a springboard to success and why I say that. So with that, I'm going to go to the calendar. Let's go to the course calendar. We might got to move this over a little bit. Okay. Your course calendar is in here. And each week, it tells you your assignments. Now, this says field work, and it said Monday, but really it was Tuesday, because that's when we did that this time, because we started on Tuesdays. But your initial post is due Wednesday, and you'll notice that next week is Tuesday all the way down, along with the open house, which constitutes lecture number 1. then your reply post on Saturday, and then your written assignment on Sunday. And it tells you in-text citations, references, 3 to 4 pages, not including the reference page, concerning then versus now. Okay? And then next week, we will go over these topics and starting on next week. And then the lecture, the live lecture, I'm sorry, not next week, but week 3 is the next time we have lecture in this class. Okay? And that's the calendar. So now let's take a look at the syllabus. The syllabus is actually an agreement, and the syllabus provides the details about what is involved here in this particular course. It's like the contract. It provides my name, phone number, email address, and then the information I told you about earlier. And then it says the purpose is to deal with the issues of criminal justice that are under debate right now. And so we're going to be spending the quarter doing, this is like a survey course. And then if you read it carefully, there is no textbook. Student has already asked me if there's a textbook. There is no textbook because this is primarily heavily on the field report. We've talked about discussion posts already. And notice here it says discussions, clear and concise, and respond to at least one each week. I encourage you to respond to more than one, and then be respectful when you do respond. Your written assignments provide you with the opportunity to examine to the various issues of criminal justice. Your field work, this is the big part here. As part of this course, you're going to complete a 10-hour field work experience. And these hours can be completed with an approved agency of your choice. You choose it and make sure. And I'll know which one it is because of the assignment requires you to let me know. And then your program assessment. This is like your final exam, week 11, 100 questions to cover topics throughout the program. So it's going to be based on your experiences that you had. Now, and then the other requirement is live lectures. You have to attend the live lectures, which provide you an opportunity to interact with me, your classmates, and become a part of learners. That's why live is better than recording. And then these sessions, it explains what their roles are. And if you're not able to attend, then you will receive the recording, and then you'll have to give me the keyword so I'll know that you saw the recording. I will give one today as well. In the meantime, I'll communicate using announcements, course mail, and calendar tools, and so forth. And it says about the times of live classrooms. I already posted that. It's in your calendar. It's also on your announcements. It's also on the home page at the bottom. Now, notice this. You have 110 points, which is for your discussion post, which means you get 10 points for each week, 5 for initial post, 5 for reply post, which constitutes 17.6% of your grade. Look at the written assignments, 300. So you want to do well on those, or 48%. Now, your field work, which actually goes with this, is 90 points, or a total of 390 of the 625, over half of that, or 14.4. But if you add these two together, you've got a total of 62 points. I think I'm right. Let's see, that's 4, that's 12, and that's 5, and that's 6. Yeah, 62%. Over 50% of your grade comes from these two things right here. And then your program assessment, you got 100 points for that. And then don't forsake the 25% or 25 points or 4%, because that can make the difference in an A or a B or a C and a B. Now, I want to tell you that my preference and desire and goal is to have you between 100 and 80. I prefer that you go closer to 100 because you get to the A minus, A plus, all the way down to rather the B minus. Now, after that, we get into the C plus and the C's, D's, F. I want to make a statement right now to you. Never call me, text me, email, ask me, what does it take for you to get a C in my class? I will not tell you that because it's doing a disservice to you. My goal and the important thing that I do is make sure that students understand that if you're going to succeed, you want to be the best. You want to be the best. And so when you're the best, you get A's and you get B's. Those are the ones that become the supervisors. They're the ones who get the best paying positions. And that's what you want to do. I know you do. And also you should be aware of the fact that the job market is tight. Therefore, the top students are the ones who get the best paying positions. So you want to do that. You're spending good money paying tuition. So what you want to do is make sure that you maximize your profit using a business term here. And then I will communicate with you according to these standards here. And then we get down to the transferable skills, which I won't spend a lot of time with you guys because you've already been dealing with this throughout the program. But we continue to focus on communication, which is very important. Critical thinking, that's very, very, very important to demonstrate in all your assignments. And then digital fluency. We are in a digital society. Everything is digital. I have right here in front of me this Note 8 phone, and it's digital. Everything. I got a book in there that's digital, which I use for all my other classes. I have email in there. I have apps in there for various things from entertainment to paying bills, all kinds of information. It's like a little computer, and it is basically. And so digital fluency is here, and you're going to need to demonstrate that in the employment field as well. Diversity, you're going to be subjected to individuals from various backgrounds, and you're going to have to deal with those scenarios. You're going to have to make sure that you are able to relate to people in a professional manner. You're going to have to communicate with people that you may not understand their language, but you're going to try to do the best you can to respect them for who they are. Different races, sexes, national origin, beliefs, all kinds of things. You can have yours, but believe that they are also entitled to theirs as well. Teamwork. You're going to be working in teams constantly. You already know that this doesn't operate with the Lone Ranger thing anymore. It's one, even the Lone Ranger had Tonto, but you don't go by yourself. You have a team of professionals that work within your field. Ethics, very important. Ethics should start at home with your character, but it should continue throughout the education, and especially in law enforcement, we have some ethical issues with the way things are operating, so much to the point that people perceive law enforcement officers as not being good people, but that's not true. There's good people and bad people in that as well as in other areas. So we we stress here ethics, so it can be a carryover into your work and the professional responsibilities that's required for your jobs. And then information literacy, I talked about that earlier. So you're going to have a chance to present all of those during this course. I already talked about the late submission policy, so I won't spend time on that. I'm going to just say, just take time to read the academic integrity policy. It is very important because it deals with the ethics. It deals with honesty and sincerity in terms of what you do, in terms of how you operate in class, which again will carry over into your employment. So then let's take a look at the assignments again. And you'll notice the written assignments, and it gives you the requirement for the pages. I've already told you about the rubric. And then the relationship between the three components, how the three components of criminal justice work together. And you'll have to know what those three are in order to do so. Then the live lecture is part of it also. So then we get back to the section where we talk about in the lesson content, what is this? What is this capstone thing? What are we doing here? Again, it gives the assignments. So here's where we pretty much conclude with the assignments, and then I'm going to share something with you. It'll take about 10 or 15 minutes. Field work, the component. This is a capstone course, which means that it's topping off everything that you've learned from the time you came in with the J100, Introduction to Criminal Justice. And so you're going to go from this particular point and apply these in a survey course. And you're going to recap, as they say, the things that you've learned in this program. And then you're going to complete, as I say, the field work, which is a minimum of 10 hours. These 10 hours need to be completed with an agency that you choose. Now, you don't have to do these 10 hours in one day, and I don't recommend you try to do that. And so these experiences will need to be documented and submitted as part of your final project, and we're going to go through the steps in a minute. The fieldwork experience is important to give you an experience in the field of study that you've chosen and probably the field that you want to end up working in. So because we recognize that, as you say here, that learning doesn't take place just in the classroom, we give you a chance to see how things actually work in real life. And that's what this fieldwork project does. So there are several steps. So in the first step, you're going to see that word research and identify a local criminal justice agency where you're going to do your project, a minimum of 10 hours of field observation, such as these are some suggestions. Police departments to complete ride-along, a series of interviews, or shadow a professional throughout the 10 hours. A halfway house to observe caseworkers, manage and release offenders, or a court proceeding, which I've done that quite a bit before I went to law school, to examine the fast-paced nature and how it works and how adjudication and then the correction phase comes up. If you are unable to conduct your field work in a single session, which, I mean, I don't recommend you try to do it in a single session, split it up over multiple days. That's the best way, I think, to do it. Important note here, very important, so much that it's squared off and highlighted with the word important with the exclamation mark. If for any reason you can't identify an agency, contact me immediately so I can help you to get yourself going there. Don't wait late, contact right away. Don't wait till the week that the assignment is due. Start doing it right away. So your first step is to contact an agency. by a letter or a phone call. And will you introduce yourself, why you're needing to talk to them, and establish a time for completing the assignment. You're encouraged to schedule, if it's a ride along, between the fourth and seventh module. So it's fourth and seventh week of class. You are not just to show up at an agency and request a ride along. It doesn't work like that. Step 3, at least one module before your meeting or 1 week before your meeting, mail or deliver a professional letter to the agency or contact person that confirms the date and time of your interview or ride along. During your ride along, agency visit, or interview, pay close attention to all that is taking place. Ask questions, take notes. Remember, you're doing this in a professional manner. How you dress, wear shirts with collars. You don't have to wear a tie. Dress slacks, jeans, no jeans rather, and dress shoes. No tennis shoes or open-toed shoes unless you have a situation where sandals, where you have a problem with surgery with your feet. But that's it. As an academic representative of our school and the program, you need to observe and present yourself the same way you would if you were interviewing for a job, internship, and other opportunities to come. And then step 5, in a 2 to 3 page report, document, you describe what you discovered from your field work. And then at the conclusion of that 2 to 3 page report, at the bottom, 1 to 2 paragraphs describing how your education that you had has prepared you for the job that you observed. So here's the deal. The key thing is that probably what you want to do is do your field work on an area that you intend on working in, that you have ideas at this present time, and that you have started looking at since you started in the program. Make sure that you have a cover sheet, your name, the agency, the date and the times of field work, who you observe, and the contact information for the agency and the person you observe. Make sure you satisfy the requirements of the modules that it says for the written assignments. If you have, you should have, one good thing I always tell students, put something in there about the agency, their website or some information, and then provide the citations and references as well. Again, you are encouraged to schedule your fieldwork as soon as possible and to take your fieldwork between week 4 and 7. Remember, you will be asked to present your first report update during week 5. So what I always say, don't wait too long to get started, and your final report is due in Module 9. And that's your field project. So make sure you complete the assignments accordingly, and let me know. And if you have problems, be sure to reach out to me. And those are the requirements for this course. Now, at the beginning, I told you that my motto at the bottom was adversity is the springboard to success. Let me explain that to you. I'm going to take about 10 minutes to try to do that. When I was a kid, 7 years old, my dad was murdered. And it was in front of my face. It happened in the house. I had 5 younger sisters, me being 7 years old, and I have a photographic memory, so I remember everything in detail. The man took out a knife and stabbed my father in the forehead, right about here, and he died after that. The man did not go to jail. He later started sleeping openly with my mother. And the reason I found out what had happened, the reason why the whole thing happened, my father confronted him, and he himself was having an affair with my mom. And so as a result of that, my father ended up losing his life. Well, after that, it gets worse. I guess you say, what do you mean it gets worse? Well, the man who did this began to openly beat my mom. So from 1957 till roughly 63, I lived in a house where violence took place on a regular basis. The police were there almost all the time, and it was like a scene from the movie um, Tina Turner story where Ike would beat her, or The Burning Bed, or some of these other movies that involve domestic violence. Anyway, it was very real, and I lived that. And she would be beaten so bad that her face was disfigured. I remember times when he stabbed her, she still took him back. He beat her with a bat, she still took him back. And so that's how we lived. Well, what ended up taking place was um, in the area we were living on the west side of Chicago, it became pretty bad, and my mom decided it was time to go. Even though there were gangs there, and I was the only surviving male, my father had passed, and with the sisters. By this time, my mom, 62, had two more kids that were fathered by this man, so I had seven younger sisters. Well, the gangs themselves decided that they would make a pact not to recruit me because they knew I was the surviving heir. That was when the gangs had some scruples. They were still bad, but they were respectful in terms of dealing with people, and there was not as many like drive-bys. There were not a lot of innocent people shot because they would tell you get out of the area, something's getting ready to go down. So, but at any rate, my mother decided to leave the area, and we moved to Gary, Indiana, in a community that was very nice, little league and all kind of activities. And my mother got a business downtown Gary at that time. There was uh, a restaurant, and so she ended up having this business. And I remember in 1963, Memorial Day, my mother left, and when my mother left, she went to her business, and I remember waking up early the next morning. There was smoke in the house, and I looked outside, and I saw the vehicle that was ours um, pull away. Well, I opened up the stove and let there was smoke in it, and I would later discover that what happened was my mother was in the back of that car or in the front of the car, and she was bleeding, and that he had come into the house to turn on the gas to kill us, but because that stuff was in there, smoke came up. Well, anyway, I let all that out. I didn't know that's what happened. I found it out later. And later that day, two police officers came to my house, and they told us that they had found my mother murdered in Chicago. I started screaming out the man's name, but what happened is that I had to catch myself because my sisters, I knew they were counting on me, especially the baby. And so anyway, um, I ended up we ended up being taken from there back to Chicago to live with an aunt in the south side of Chicago, and she really didn't want us there. We had a hard time there. And so another aunt came and took us and moved us into a house in the south, further south, in an area in the Morgan Park or Maple Park area is called. And we were living in that situation. It was a nice house. It had been built brand new, but the problems persisted with her husband because I didn't get along with him because number one, I didn't want to take his name, but we had other problems that I didn't learn until later. I just didn't like him. Well, I found out why because later on it was revealed to me that he had tampered with my sisters, and that was not that was horrible. So anyway, living in that house, I used to try to get out of the house. But let me go back to when we first moved there when I was 14. I discovered and found out that the man pled guilty to killing my mother and that they were going to sentence him to 10 years in prison. I didn't think that was good, but I thought it was better than what happened with my father. But then someone would bring to my attention that 10 meant 5, and that it would be 5 years. So I ended up discovering further that 5 years also could be cut down if the man did well while he was in prison. A year and a half could be cut off, and that's what ultimately happened. So he served 3.5 years. At this time, like I say, being 14 years old, I was troubled. I would cry and ask questions, and finally, someone said to me that it's just the way the law operates, and I didn't know what they meant. And they told me about these people called lawyers. So I went to the library and I got a book out of the library. And I checked this book out, and the book told me all about lawyers. I read it cover to cover in one night. The next day, anybody I met, I told them my name is Richard Wright, and I'm going to be a lawyer. I had my aunt, the one that I used to live with, the first one, she said right away, you're shooting too high. You need to find something less to do because this is a little difficult for you. And then at school, there were counselors who told me that I didn't fit the mold and that it would be impossible and that I should go into a trade. Well, I have no trouble with the trade, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I didn't tell those people that I wasn't taking their advice. I just didn't take their advice. I went on about my business. As it was, things became so that I graduated from high school, and I was 19, and I moved in with some friends at their house. Well, while living there, I did two things. Number one, I started college. I had to go to a junior college because my aunt refused to sign papers that the church that I was working with, helping out as a youth, they had a full scholarship for me, but it required their signatures. He said to her no, and so I went on about my business. So I ended up going to a junior college, Loop College in Chicago, which is called Harold Washington City College in Chicago, to study liberal arts and head toward a degree in political science. In the meantime, my friend's mother got me a job through a friend of hers at a big law firm downtown, working in their mailroom. And I would, go on public transportation. I didn't have a license. I didn't have a car or any of that. So I'd ride the L and two buses to get downtown. Well, I got married in less than a year after that, in 1970, and I ended up moving into an apartment then with her, and then two kids came along. Well, anyway, what took place then is that the law firm where I was working for, I had told the lawyers when I got there that I was interested in becoming a lawyer, and I paid attention to them. I would take packages to their clients, and one of the clients that I ended up meeting and interacting with was a gentleman by the name of Ray Kroc. Some of you may or may not know that name, but he was the founder of McDonald's. Anyway, I was exposed to a number of big corporate situations, but corporate law really wasn't a big thing. But it was fine. I was in a law office. Well, anyway, the law firm, seeing my diligence, they promoted me to a file clerk. And then came an opportunity. The law librarian was found dead on the streets. He had drank himself to death. So they asked me if I'd like to take a shot at it, and I told them, no, I want the job. So I took the job and as librarian, and in the meantime, I'm still going through college. By this time, I had left junior college and got accepted at a four-year institution called Roosevelt University in their political science program, minoring in business and in accounting specifically. So anyway, I ended up um, taking the job as a librarian. And then while I was in there, I used to listen to the lawyers, and I would go and um, learn how they were researching. So finally, one day came where I listened to the lawyers talk about a point of law, and I knew how they were finding it by this time. So I waited until they went to lunch. And then I took my lunch period, and I went through and I found the cases and pulled them, put the slips of paper, piled them up with a legal pad. Well, one of the lawyers came to me after lunch and says, all the cases I need on point, I can't find. They were missing. Somebody got them. I says, come, let me show you. And I took them to the table, and they were stacked up. He says, who did this? I said, I did. He says, you know how to do that? I said, yes. So he said, come with me. And he took me to one of the senior partners, and they said, we're wasting our money. This kid knows how to research. And the partner smiled because he already knew how I was. And I said, what do you suppose we do? He said, let's have him start helping us with research and writing. So what I became was a law clerk, which is today called a paralegal. And I continued doing that while I continued to go through Roosevelt University, stay on the honor roll and the dean's list, and do well. So it came time for me to take the LSAT to go into law school, and I took it and was kind of disappointed in how I scored on it. So anyway, I still was determined for what I was going to do. So people said, well, what you going to do? I says, well, I'm not taking the test again because I had talked to some people about it. And so I said, but I'm still going to law school. But they said, well, okay, you're going to apply to at least about 3 schools. I said, I'm applying to Northwestern University. That's where I'm going. So, and I didn't never say if I get in. I said, that's where I'm going to go. So it came time for the application to be submitted for the class of 78, which would start in 75. And I put together a big package. Now, the application is usually about 6 or 7 pages, but my package was like this thick. It was in a big box. And so it got delivered there. And then I got this message from the law school. It was a letter asking me to contact them for a personal interview. They had already said in their materials that they don't grant those, but they wanted to see who was behind this package. So I ended up going there, and 357 East Chicago Avenue at that time was the address. Now it's 375 because they added another building to it. I sat there, and they fired questions, and I answered them. And then I told them about my experiences coming up. And they said, wow, okay. They said, well, we can't tell you that you're accepted, but we will say welcome to the school. So it was like an informal acceptance. So I got a letter shortly after that being accepted into the class. Now the class, you should be aware of, consisted of 250 seats, and there were there was thousands of people applying for those seats. The ratio was very high, but I was confident enough that I would get in. So sure enough, I got in, got accepted, graduated from college with honors. I was selected by my graduation class at Roosevelt University in political science with what they call the opportunity to go to Springfield to receive the Lincoln Educational Academy Award, which put my name in Springfield permanently. And out of 5,000 students, I was chosen and got it. So I was doing pretty good. So I get into law school, and then the person I was married to at that time, she was a teacher. She had graduated. And So I found out quickly that Northwestern didn't have night school, that you had to work hard, and they told us that they don't allow students to work in the first year at all. So our sole income was her working. But that particular year, first time in history, um, Chicago Public Schools went on strike, and there went our income at all. Two kids living in an apartment. It was just tough. So anyway, all that pressure on me, I just having trouble focusing on my books and everything. So I talked to a few people and says I think I'm going to take a leave. Well, one of the professor by the name of Joyce Hughes, she got a wind of what I was talking about. I ended up in her office, and she sat me down and told me I wasn't leaving there until I gave her um, a guarantee that I wasn't going to quit, and that she would be there to support me and encourage me along the way. So I did. We ended up at home losing our electricity, so I had to study by candlelight and with flashlights. It was pretty tough, but guess what? I made it through. While I was there, one of my classmates, his dad was a distinguished criminal defense lawyer, invited some of us lawyers to his house on the south side of Chicago, and I told my story to him, and he said, "We need to get closure for you." So he took me to the criminal courts building at 26th in California in Chicago, downstairs in the basement in the archives, and pulled out information pertaining to the cases of my father and my mother. And then he sat down and talked with me, and he says, "I want to give you some good advice. If you follow it, you'll be all right." He says, "Become a criminal defense lawyer." So I'm still in law school. I'm still trying to understand that. And he explained it to me. He says, "You will learn it. You will learn the system." So when I graduated, I went back to the law firm for about a couple of years, and then I said, I got to go. I can't. I'm not happy with this. And I was making really good money, but I said I got to go. So I worked with some guys for a while. Didn't like their practice and ethics, so I started my own. I ended up going on radio, giving legal advice over the radio. Formulated a program called Know Your Rights, which was a play on words, which Rights was WRIGHTS, which was 9744487 in the phone number. I had that as the phone number. And so people were, I had a good practice. So anyway, the bottom line was this, is that I was on my way. Well, there were issues because I had to, make sure the overhead and all that was paid and all of that. Now, keep in mind that when I was in law school, it was something. I was on public transportation. I didn't have a car. I used to study on the bus, on the L, through college and law school. I would have to be at work at 8:30 in the morning, and then classes started at 4 o'clock in undergrad, and I made it through. And on Saturdays, I took classes as well. And then when I got into law school, I still continued for a first year. For one semester, I was in the dorm, but couldn't do it anymore when the situation happened I told you. So I ended up having to commute back home, and it was pretty heavy. So I ended up, like I said, making it through and practicing. And then 91 and 93, I went to seminary, Trinity and Evangelical Divinity School. You'll see that in the student lounge that I posted, where I went to study for my Master of Arts in Religion. I didn't finish all of the requirements, so it's still pending, but that was okay. I already had a Juris Doctor, so I was already a doctor. So anyway, I proceeded on to do that. And then in 2000, uh, um, after several other kids came, I had gotten divorced a couple of times and then got married again to my current wife. In 2000, I decided it was time to leave law. I was 50 years old, concentrate on ministry and do some other things. So I did, and I ended up doing okay. I taught special ed for a while, dealing with troubled kids. Incorrigible. These kids were, behavioral disorder, or BDs, they used to call them. And I had the other ones too, educational, the ones who had disabilities. But the point of the matter is that the EDs were the ones that used to be the ones that I would deal with the toughest. And so anyway, I ended up deciding to go back to school to prove to some kids at the church that they needed a better degree than a bachelor's. And so at 53, I went back to get an MBA and got accepted at University of Illinois, Chicago in their program. I was in that for a while until I was in a car accident, and then I never went back from there. Well, after that, I did a few other side things. And so then we move up to 2011. We had a change in our family. My wife lost her mom, and we were going to move away from the area. Well, I took a job at Rasmussen College in, let me backtrack before that. 89, before I met my current wife, I was offered an opportunity to serve as the village attorney in a tough town where it was corruption and crack cocaine and all of that. So I took the job, but I said, I'm not going to take this job unless I can carry a gun. And they told me you can't carry a gun, and only police officers can carry a gun. So I said, okay, point me to the academy, and I did. I went through the training, took the courses that were necessary. The state certified me to carry a weapon. I had a badge. I participated in drug raids. I did all of that stuff. But I primarily never wore a uniform but a suit. So from 89 to 93, I served as the village attorney, village prosecutor, general counsel. I served as a part-time police officer, internal affairs investigator, and an investigator, period, to 93. So I did that. So I had the expertise in all the areas that we have in this field. So then here we go from this particular, and then I worked with a lot of corrections people. I mean, a lot of corrections and jailers and sheriffs and so forth. So anyway, going back to when I decided to retire and teach, and then coming to Rasmussen, they offered me a job to teach business law. And I let them know, I says, well, I'm not really a business law person. I'm more of a criminal justice person. So I let the dean know, and then he said, okay, and put me into criminal justice as an adjunct professor because they weren't hiring full time. So I stuck it out, and then finally in 2014, there came an opening for what they call the state program coordinator for the School of Justice Studies in Illinois, which meant that the responsibility would be to cover 4 campuses, the Romeoville campus, the Mokina Tinley Park campus, the Aurora campus, and the Rockford campus. And I applied and got the job. And I continued serving students as a full-time now employee of the school. And then I did that in 2015, late 2015. So it's about a little over a year and a half. They decided to change the structure and did away with state program coordinators and took those of us who were state program coordinators and gave us 2 more classes. We had already been teaching 3, and all were online to teach 5. And so I started doing that. Then I became an associate professor, and then the following year, 2016, an assistant professor, and then in 2017, last year, a professor, full professor, and now known as Dr. Richard Wright. And so I've done that and taught various classes, including this class, almost many of you have run across me or either know of me. And so anyway, I continue to help students to understand how important it is to be a good professional. And so I encourage students based on what I went through and the adversity I went through, that I know you're going to go through something. That's why I understand extenuating circumstances. I understand that life happens, but I understand too that you have to be willing to continue to move forward. I had a goal to do what I did, and now I enjoy what I do. I enjoy sharing and mentoring and teaching and reaching to students. I pastor a church as well now. I like helping people, period. And so I encourage each of the students that come across me to become the best professional that you can, and not to let things sidetrack you and throw you off from the goal or the desire that you want to accomplish. And so I want to take time to share that with you and hope that encourages you and guides you in terms of the things that you do. And so as we end, I'm going to give you my key word for this week. And that's the word I will be looking for: adversity. Adversity. And if you put that in, letting me know that you listened to the lecture and put that in, then you will get the credit for it. Hoping that I will see some of you, many of you, during week 3 when our next lecture takes place. In the meantime, if you have any concerns, you know the rules I already gave you about reaching out to me. So I'm going to say to you at this time, good night.